In a life full of devotion, the ultimate betrayal surfaced. The one and only woman I had ever loved deeply had mocked our holy vows and reduced our dreams to dust. A sinister game of betrayal exposed itself as the layers of deceit started to come apart, mocking the foundation of the trust we had established. Trust me, I don't know what the hell kind of game you and Samantha are playing, but I promise you this, I will get to the bottom of it, and I promise you heads will roll. This is my vow, my crusade against betrayal. Witness my journey into the heart of darkness. This is my story. Enjoy watching it. I knew I would be working until at least 6:30 p.m. when I took a look at the pile of Excel worksheets that had just arrived in my inbox on the company's SharePoint site. Every month, this happens, managers would send their reports at the last minute, leaving me to gather the information. Too bad I didn't make it home by a decent hour. I called Samantha, my wife, to let her know what was going on and to let her know that I would be working late once more. My wife asked, "Mike, are you feeling the end-of-month blues again?" That is me, by the way, Michael Jacobs. I thought Samantha's query was snarky. Yeah, this happens every freaking month. Some of these persons wait until the last second to send this information. It's almost as if they're waiting for something wonderful to happen. I apologize. I should be done around 6:30, as usual, I replied. Not a problem, sighed Samantha. I expected it to happen anyway. I've scheduled a table for two at Luigi's for 7 p.m. tonight. I felt you could use a break. We both liked the small, comfortable Italian restaurant called Luigi's. We often enjoyed a drink and a few slow dances at the nearby small dance club before returning home to spend the evening in bed. I smiled at the prospect of a pleasant evening with my wonderful wife. Yes, I can, I replied. That was extremely thoughtful of you, dear. So, 7-ish? Somewhere around 7, Samantha confirmed. Tada, she added before finishing the call. It seemed strange to me that she did not extend her usual warm greeting to end the conversation. It dawned on me then that Wilson Langley, the senior partner of the Hampstead Law Group and her boss, was undoubtedly listening in. I glanced at the handset briefly before putting it back on the phone and going back to work. I launched the macro that would do the majority of the work, opened my master sheet, and saved the spreadsheets. The macro that our IT team created did an amazing job of collecting and organizing all of the data. It used to take hours to sort through it all, but now it only takes a small amount of time to complete. As the macro receded, I refilled my coffee and took a seat to consider the final years I shared with Samantha. I didn't work in an office all the time. Actually, I was a federal agent employed by a special task force that was a public-private partnership until roughly 7 years ago. As one of the initial agents assigned to the task force, I had direct reporting to Bill Jackson, a family law attorney at the top of the organization hierarchy. I've collaborated with some of the best in the industry, including Frank Michaels and Oscar Warren. Frank was tragically killed while performing his job. Oscar is currently moving up the corporate ladder after getting married to the boss's daughter. The organization I was employed by, which was formerly called the Homefront Security Task Force, was founded with the express purpose of pursuing the Mutual Marital Assurance Society, or MAS. After her spouse had an extramarital affair, a female lawyer founded the organization. After experiencing disappointment from the legal system, she decided to exact revenge. Originally, MAS was intended to punish straying husbands in cruel ways. They proved to be a difficult group to pin down, and most of our work during those days was reacting to keep the spouses safe whose wives had set them up for accountability. Those were the interventions that we called, and they usually worked. Keep in mind that I usually talk about pretty severe punishment. The cruel treatment meted out to many unsuspecting husbands resulted in more than one death and left many more with lifelong physical and psychological scars. The task force's headquarters, Fort Apache, had a hospital full of guys who had been disciplined by MAS staff. Relationships became jaded for me after my time on the task force. I shied away from anything that resembled a committed relationship after seeing the suffering that so many men had suffered at the hands of their wives. I therefore made my way from intervention to intervention, trying to help the people. During one of those interventions, a bullet shattered my right femur just above the knee. I was assigned to have my life drastically changed. My career as a federal agent came to an end, but I could now walk with a cane after months of surgery and physical therapy. Being the kind of man he is, Bill came right out and told me that my assignment with the task force was over and that I would not be able to find another position to work for. I was given a disability check each month, along with a medal and the gratitude of the country. Bill didn't seem like enough, so he made some calls, got me a job at IVAS and Security Services, or IAC, as Assistant Operations Director. IAC is a national company that provides high-net-worth VIPs with armed security, private investigation services, and uniformed on-site security. The task force I was a member of before is one of the company's clients. Even better, the headquarters I would be working from happened to be in my hometown, where my grandparents gave me a 2-story house. The fact that I wouldn't have to move or sell the property relieved me. After a brief conversation with Jack Iverson, the company's founder and president, I had gladly accepted. Compared to what I had done before, my task was much simpler. I merely moved papers from one pile to another. I visited clients in person to address any issues they had or to carry out requests from Greg Hamilton, the CEO at the time. That's how Samantha Green and I initially met. At the time, she was employed by Hempstead as an office assistant. When discussions between our marketing team and Langley stalled, she was tasked with locating a guardian to provide security for the company's downtown headquarters. Greg asked me to come in and wrap things up. It was my duty to sign the agreement or put an end to the ongoing back and forth. Wilson Langley seemed happy that IAC would send someone with my background to make things clear. I understood the game he was playing, like any astute businessman. He wanted more services at a reduced cost. He dragged our marketing team along by making small adjustments to every contract for weeks in order to achieve that goal. I went over our standard operating procedures and said we were happy to meet his company's requirements. Still, we utilized the same original contract for each and every one of our clients. He could always contact my department if he had any special requirements or limitations, and we would make the required modifications, as long as they were reasonable and compliant, if needed. "Is that correct, Mr. Jacobs?" he asked, laughing. Put another way, Fisher cut the bait. I gave a shrug of my shoulders and answered. "You've got my business," the older man said, holding up his hand. "That's one way of looking at it, Mr. Langley." "I admire your openness very much," I replied. "Thank you, Mr. Langley," I said as we shook hands. "Have your staff provide me the greatest contract they can put together, and I will sign it." Wilson Langley fulfilled his promise and signed. He then elevated Samantha to the position of executive assistant. Later that week, Samantha called to tell me about her promotion, which shocked me. She accepted my invitation to supper to celebrate. Our relationship is just getting started. I was shocked to learn that my condition didn't turn her off because I wasn't expecting anything to come of it. After Greg retired a year later, Old Man Iverson named me CEO of Slot. Although I was aware that Greg had been preparing me for the position, I was surprised by how quickly things changed. I quickly became comfortable in my new position and realized that the additional cash would be helpful. I made the decision to open a new bank account at that point because I was done using it for monthly expenses. I was going to save it for when I finally retired. I never referred to the account as Sam, for whatever reason. On Friday, I made a marriage proposal and we had dinner at Luigi's to celebrate my promotion. Samantha led me to meet her parents after she accepted. Although I had never met him in person, I already knew that her father, Jacob Green, was among the wealthiest men in the state. He proved to be one of the most conceited assholes I had ever encountered. He scowled at the cane I was holding in my left hand and then extended his hand. I could practically feel his disapproval as we shook hands. "So, after lighting a large cigar, Sam told me you were a federal agent who was shot in the line of duty," he complained. "That's right," I said in an impartial voice. "Who are you working for?" "The Homefront Security Task Force," replied I. One eyebrow raised, I noticed. I've never heard of him, Jacob growled. He asked with a sarcastic arrogance, "What have you done for them?" Scrubbed the shutter, and I could understand exactly what he was trying to say. Reminding myself that Sam could be sour and crude, I chose to shove it back down his throat. I'm not allowed to talk about anything I did without telling him, but I can tell you something. I killed them, I said in a composed tone. His eyes grew wide, and his brows shot up. I smiled and carried on, with the ones I didn't throw in the jail. He was better before moving forward, but if you want to wed my daughter, I will still require a prenuptial agreement. I hope you understand that I'm not just snooping around her trust fund. We shook hands, and I said, "No offense taken, Mr. Green. I'm okay with a prenuptial agreement, as long as it's reasonable and fair." "Excellent, but I'm tired of you, Mr. Green shit. Can you hear me? You can call me Pop if you'd like, and you marry my little girl." He laughed, "All right, Pop," and called Sam into the parlor. "Sam, Samantha, is everything all right?" inquired as she walked into the room. "I believe so," replied her dad. "You choose a terrific dude here, someone with a backbone and balls to match, far superior to the last piece of crap you married." I already knew that Sam had married her first husband, a man she met in college. She did not tell me the whole story, but she did say they were divorced. As she made her way to her father, Sam said, "I really think so. Are you two okay now?" "Yes, Mike, we're okay, I think." I uttered those words. The old man smiled and looked up at his daughter. "Yes, Pop. You see now? How about you go assist your mother in making dinner? We'll proceed accordingly." She gave him a cheek kiss in return. "Okay, Father," and he turned to face me, staring at me before saying, "Tell me something, Mike. Really, were you serious when you said that you were going to kill people?" His face started to swell with blood as I said, "Of course, but they were all nasty guys who truly deserved it." Jack said, "Maybe you could tell me about it one of these days." "I would love to, Pop, but everything is classified, and I agreed to a non-disclosure agreement," I replied. After giving me a serious look, he slowly nodded and said, "I can respect that, son." The rest of our visit went well. Sam and I had become closer to her parents by the time we left. The wedding, held in a big historic church, was well attended. We took a paid honeymoon by flying to Hawaii, and when we got back, Sam sold her condominium and moved into my house. I guess the old man needed to know he could respect his future son-in-law. Everything was good until a few months ago when my computer buzzed and I saw a dialog box telling me the macro had completed its work. I finished my executive summary, looked over the finished product, double-checked the numbers to make sure they were correct, saved the package, shut down the computer, and put the report in a binder so Jack could look at it first thing in the morning. If it had been someone else, I would have just emailed it, but my employer is old school and wants a physical printout that he can hold in his hands. I don't blame him for that. I took a shower, brushed my hair, put on my suit jacket, grabbed my walking cane, and turned out the lights before realizing it was 6:32 p.m. I figured I would have plenty of time to stop by the flower shop on my way to Luigi's, so I got into my car and turned on the stereo, letting the sounds of Thick as a Brick wash over me. All right, so I like classic Jethro Tull. Sue me, or my father if you insisted. He's the one who first introduced me to Tull, so of course, and we had a great time together, and I remember how the other kids thought it was awesome that I had a rock music-loving father. And I didn't argue the point, because they were right, and even now, Dad and I often smoke cigars while listening to music. It was 6:55 p.m. when I got to the restaurant, so I texted Sam to let her know I was there. Samantha had mentioned 7-ish, which meant anything between 6:55 and 7:15, and I didn't see her car in the parking lot. "Hey," was the only response I got, no emojis or terms of endearment. Usually, this wouldn't bother me, but it did tonight. Samantha had been acting chilly and moody for the past few weeks. Whenever I asked her what was bothering her, she would just wave her hand and say something offhand. I hoped the flowers I bought would cheer her up, so I got out of the car and into the restaurant. The woman at the door smiled as I walked in, and her smile grew wider when she saw the flowers in my hand. Jacob had a two-person party, I declared. Right this way, sir, the young woman answered, taking 2 menus. I followed her to a seat along the back wall, looking around the restaurant. She gave me a menu and poured me a glass of water before leaving, so I sipped my water and took a quick look at the menu. I was waiting for my wife, already knowing what I wanted, and the next 20 minutes seemed to go by painfully slowly. I looked up to see if Sam had arrived, but she hadn't, and then I saw him approaching, walking in my direction, obviously a process server from the look of him and the fact that he had a manila envelope in his palm, which was a dead giveaway. I assumed he would ignore me, but I knew he wouldn't. The man came up to my table and asked, "Michael Jacobs?" "Yes," I answered. "May I please have a look at some identity?" He gave me the envelope and took a picture with his phone, but I said, of course, pulling out my wallet and showing him my driver's license. "You've been served, sir," he replied. "Have a nice evening." That's when he turned and left. I watched him go, then opened the envelope, not surprised to see the paperwork labeled Petition for Dissolution of Marriage. I didn't deserve this, but it certainly reflected Samantha's attitude over the past few weeks as she was divorcing me on the grounds of adultery, which was blatantly false. I took my phone out of my pocket and sent Sam a text that said, "WTF." As I read Samantha's petition, I heard a woman's voice. "Mr. Jacobs, I saw that a rather small blonde wearing a business suit was at the table using the phone's video record app. I put my phone back in my pocket so that the uncomfortable talk would be captured on camera." "It depends," I said in response. "Who could it be?" She held out her hand and introduced herself as Allison Cartwright of Hempstead Law Group. I started to reach for her hand, but she said, "I am representing your wife." So I stopped. Embarrassed, I lowered my hand and looked at the paperwork in front of me. "Could I just take a seat?" "This is a free country, assist yourself," she said, pulling out a chair to sit in front of me. "Are you two ready to place an order?" A waiter approached, maybe thinking the woman across from me was a part of my two-person party. With a pen and pad in her hand, the waitress, whose name tag said Cindy, asked. I told Cindy, "No, I won't be staying much longer." "Very well, sir," Cindy said, not expecting a response from Allison as she cast her eyes away. "Tell me if you decide to change your mind, please." I hissed, "So, tell your client she can eat my garbage and die," and waited for her to go before turning to face Allison. "Now if you'll excuse me, I'm going home." "Mr. You will hear from my attorney shortly, Jacobs," said Allison. "That will not be doable," Allison said. "First and foremost, my client has obtained a restraining order against you, and you are not permitted to come within 500 feet of the marital home." "Are you serious? I take it that she also wants the house?" "Yes, she does, and I believe she's entitled to it." "Did your client inform you that the house has been solely registered in my name since my grandparents gave it to me many years prior to our marriage? Thus, it is not considered community property." "No, she didn't," said Allison, "but you believe she is entitled to it anyhow after what you have done." "Yes," Allison answered, taking out an envelope from her purse and tossing it on the table. I peered inside and saw a pile of pictures, which caught me off guard. I knew I wasn't one of the people in the pictures, and I had the impression she knew as well. But Allison wasn't done yet. "You see, Mr. Jacobs, we have videos and photographic evidence of your infidelity," the woman said. "My client has asked me to let you know that she will make sure the photos and videos from which they are derived are sent to everyone you know, including your boss, family, and friends, should you refuse to sign those documents. That is extortion," I told her, "a felony in this state, and the fact that you participated in that conduct makes you an accessory to Samantha's crime." Allison shrugged her shoulders and grinned. "Extortion? That is just a different name for family law." Seeing the look on my face, Allison laughed. "Trust me, Mr. Jacobs, there's a lot more we can do for you." "My customer is not entirely unreasonable, however," Allison said, her tone softening. "In order to get what you need, she is willing to let you stay in the house for a few days. You've invited me to go with you. Isn't that just wonderfully amazing of her?" I gave a sarcastic reply. Allison flinched away from my comments and tone, but she remained silent. For now, I decided to keep it cool. I picked up the divorce papers and the packet of pictures and got to my feet. Follow me if you must. Since I hadn't placed an order, I paid the server $120 for her troubles and the flowers and left the restaurant as quickly as my cane would allow. Allison still found it difficult to keep up. I hopped in my car, turned on the camera app, and drove quickly out of the lot, not giving a damn if Allison was pursuing me. I parked in front of the garage as soon as I got to the house. The spot where Samantha usually parked was empty when I opened the garage door. Taking a deep breath, I looked over the house. Then I thought back to my time serving on the task force. I recalled the numerous instances in which mass operations that drugged, mistreated, and harassed our suspecting husbands ambushed them in their own homes. I asked, not to anyone in particular, "Is that what you have in store for me, Samantha?" So guess what isn't occurring today? I unlocked my glove box, pulled out my holstered 9mm semi-automatic pistol, made sure it was chambered, and fastened it to my belt while Allison parked close to the curb. I opened one of the front doors of my car after getting out. I opened the door a little, but not all the way. I returned the keys to my pocket. I pulled the revolver out of its sheath. Allison's face went white when she saw my pistol. "It's all right, I have a concealed carry permit," I informed her. "And I understand how to use it." "That's unnecessary, Mr. Jacobs," Allison said, staring at the weapon. "I will decide what is essential or not. Ladies first, maintain your hands where I can see them at all times, and don't even consider reaching for anything. Give me a reason and I'll ditch you so soon you will die before you realize it. Understand?" "Yes, I do comprehend," she replied. I motioned for her to go in front of me with the revolver. "Good, go ahead, open the door. I will be close behind you." Allison approached the door hesitantly, and as she did, I said, "Open it." She did so nervously, opening the door and going inside. I fell in behind. I'm using my left hand to steady myself while holding a pistol in my right. I quickly turned off the security alarm and made sure nobody was inside, using my training to help me. I gestured for Allison to take a position in the center of the room. I said, "Put your purse on the sofa." I told Allison to put her hands on her head and stay still, and she complied. She obeyed, and I nodded. "Remember what I said. If you follow my commands exactly, you'll make it out of here alive." I took a leisurely stroll around the ground floor to make sure nobody else was there. I flipped on the lights and opened the basement door. I turned to face Allison in the main room after looking around and seeing that no one was there. "Upstairs, now." When I got upstairs, Allison went to get her handbag, but I stopped her and said, "I've placed an order. Just leave it." She obeyed, climbing the stairs. She walked a few steps, and then I sat down in the stairlift that I had installed after being released from the hospital. Allison looked up at me as we tiptoed toward the second floor. She asked, "In any case, what are you trying to find?" "Just checking to make sure I didn't receive any unpleasant surprises from you or Samantha." "Do you really believe we would take such action?" "A known occurrence in the past," I told her, adding, "I'm just being cautious in light of your threat to the restaurant." I got back up when we got to the top of the stairs. I said, "Remain in this place, stay put," before perusing the rooms on the second floor. I guided Allison to the master bedroom and holstered my weapon after making sure no one else was inside the house. I looked at the sleeping bag and the bag of clothes on the bed and said, "What is this?" In an attempt to expedite the process, Samantha took the liberty of assembling some of your items. I went through both of the bags, having no idea what to anticipate anymore. I was relieved that nothing had been tampered with, no bugs added to my belongings. I walked to the closet and took out a couple more things. Subsequently, I shifted a few hanging objects to one side, unveiling my integrated fireproof safe. Making sure Allison couldn't see me, I opened the outer door and touched the black plate underneath. My fingerprints were confirmed by the scanner, and the inner door was not locked. I took off the $100 bill strap after noticing it. I reasoned that the $10,000 in the strap would tide me over for a while during my visit. I took some important documents and turned on the home security system by flipping a switch located at the rear of the safe. Everything that occurred in the house would now be captured on camera and stored on a cloud server, every movement and every word in every landline phone conversation. I was free to view and listen whenever. I was pleased that I could keep an eye on everything in real time if I so desired. I had installed this system during my time in the task force, but I hadn't used it prior to getting married. I knew the system would function and gather the necessary evidence, even if technology had advanced since it was first built. Allison was waiting for me in the bedroom when I went back inside the safe and shut it. I filled the overnight bag with everything. Subsequently, I removed my wedding band and placed it on the dresser. "Are you prepared at this point?" asked Allison. "Yes, I am," I told her. "All right, if you would like, I can bring your clothes back down." "You need your left hand," she said. "I know that." "I'm grateful," I said icily. After we went downstairs, I entered my house office. "Before I leave, I have a few things to take care of here," I informed her. I entered my workspace, my personal sanctuary. Samantha had her own office, therefore, she hardly ever entered this room. I, however, was not going to take any chances in case Samantha attempted to access my computer. I modified the primary boot-up password. I then put the external backup disk aside to carry with me. After disconnecting it, I turned on my backup file destruction system in the closet by flipping the switch. Similar to the system of video surveillance, although it was installed during my time in the task force, it had been off for the previous 7 years. There would be nothing but ashes if someone broke in and attempted to grab any of my files. By the time the incendiary weapons had completed their work, I double-locked the office door after changing the security code, an action I hadn't taken in years. After glancing around one more time, I shut the door and returned to the front room where Allison was already waiting for me. "All set now?" she inquired. "Come on, let's go," I stated bluntly before shutting and locking the front door and resetting the alarm. Allison placed the clothes bag in my car's trunk and turned to face me. "Your joint account has been frozen, just so you know. Samantha has already consumed her fair part. Take quick action to sign the documents. I'm hoping to hear from your attorney shortly," she said. "Believe me, I have no idea what type of game you and Samantha are playing, but I can assure you that it is not this. I'll investigate it thoroughly, and heads will roll. I can assure you." "We just wanted to let you know that you and your client are at war," I growled as Allison processed what I had said. "You're now my enemies." Her face went white. "The first blood was yours. Furthermore, I disliked losing arguments. I went downtown because I knew of a hotel where even without a reservation, I could get an extended stay room for a fair price. Over the years, I had stayed at this motel numerous times. They were so generous as to provide us a good discount. I paid cash for a week's stay, thinking that by then, I would be back at my own home. In addition, even though I suspected they were following me, I didn't want to make it any simpler for them to locate me. I handed the cashier a modest quantity of $100 bills, and he seemed shocked but said nothing, placing the bills in his cash register and giving me a key card. My bags were taken by a bellhop who then escorted me to my 11th floor accommodation. Having finished putting everything away, I knew the hotel's kitchen was open until midnight, so I ordered dinner. I took out my phone and blocked Samantha's number. After that, I knew a number of divorced men who had gotten into problems by answering calls and texting. My next course of action was to give my supervisor, Jack Iverson, a call and report the incident. Ion responded, "Damn, son, that's cold, old man. I'll give Alice Hawkins a call and try to arrange for you to visit her first thing in the morning. When I'm through with her, I'll text you. Regards, manager." Thank you for that. We hung up the phone, and I told him, family law attorney Alice Hawkins detests infidelity with a fervor. About half an hour later, I received a text from Jack verifying my 9:30 a.m. meeting with Alice. He also extended a complimentary offer to me for the company's private investigation services. I agreed and texted back to say thank you. Grabbing my laptop, I set it up and connected to the hotel's Wi-Fi network. When I initially examined our joint account, Samantha had already taken out around 80% of it, but before that, it was frozen. Our combined savings account had virtually vanished, and our joint credit cards had been paid off and canceled. Luckily, the monthly expenses had already been settled in full. I went into my other bank's disability account and logged in. The fact that it was still available gave me relief. I felt relieved that I had kept that account from Samantha. Upon accessing my home security system, I discovered that 2 films had already been cloud stored. When I opened the first video, I could see Allison and Samantha entering the house. Samantha was joined by a well-groomed male, interestingly glancing at the timestamp. I thought to myself, it was not long after I departed that I realized this. How did that go, then? Has he signed the documents? Once they were gathered inside the front room, Samantha inquired, "No St, Allison?" I predicted he most likely wouldn't. He has 30 days legally to reply. You forgot to notify me that he would be armed, by the way, Allison added. Armed, you know, like a gun. Indeed, Samantha. Armed typically means that, Allison gave a caustic response. I've never felt such fear in my life, she said. He was a government agent once. He was shot while performing his duty, Samantha gently informed her. He has that cane for that reason. I am aware that he possesses a concealed carry permit, remarked Allison. Fantastic, replied Allison. You had the opportunity to speak with me beforehand. Hold on, the man spoke out. Do you mean that he threatened you with a gun? Yes, Allison answered. He looked through the entire house, almost as though he thought someone would be stopping by. For whom did he work? Are you aware? Not precisely, no, Samantha informed her. About a task force of some sort. However, he rarely discussed his work. I do know that he once admitted to killing people to my father. He did not. Toss in the towel, task group interesting, with some consideration, Allison answered. I'll have to look into that. Fantastic, that is very impressive, the man said. An angry ex-fellow brandishing a gun when he discovers the whole truth. What do you think he will do? Calm down. He will not act in any way, stated Allison. Indeed, he is furious. He has every right to be. To be honest, he isn't stupid, though. Furthermore, he won't discover the complete truth, Samantha added. One more thing, Samantha. Why didn't you inform me that this was his house before your marriage? It didn't seem to matter to me, Samantha responded. Why are you joking with me? In a divorce, technically you have no claim to this location. However, I meant it when I declared that I deserved to have it. However, you've just made my work much more difficult, Allison spat. Does that imply that we can now set him up? The man inquired. I am carrying a whole thumb drive filled with pictures and videos. I can install it on his PC in less than a second. He'll be dead to WRS by then before he realizes what hit him. He'll be in jail. Put that away now, Allison ordered. We haven't yet reached that point. Additionally, he closed the door to his office and took his backup drive with him when he left. I believe he also modified the lock security code, the man inquired. Give the tire iron to me. That will help me pry open this door. In addition, Sam provided me his computer's password, Allison said. Never even consider it, with a reddened face, Allison said. This is where we will need to exercise caution. Do not act hastily. Do you hear me? Please give me some time so I can consider this. I will have to learn everything I can about your spouse, Samantha. I know people at the federal level. I'll see what I can pull out of them. Now, you two calm down and don't make any foolish moves. In the interim, Alan, are you hearing me? Even though our departments are not the same, I am still in charge of you. I understand, yes, I understand, at least now that I had a first name and knew exactly how far they would go to set me up, the man sheepishly remarked. However, why after Allison departed, Samantha and Alan ascended the stairs, signaling the conclusion of the video. The master bedroom is where the following video was shot. Alan removed his tie and jacket and tossed them upon the back of my chair. Samantha undressed, and he put on the remainder of his clothes. He took her in his arms when she was undressed. Sam, hurry up. Why don't we enjoy ourselves under the covers? He smiled. Samantha looked up. She said, I guess it wouldn't hurt. After all, in not too long, this will be our bedroom. It would be best for you to adjust to it. She looked over and saw my ring lying on the dresser. Mike, have a look at this. His wedding band was still on. How considerate. I may possibly pawn it along with the rest of his junk. They both chuckled at it. She went back to the bed after tossing the ring back onto the dresser. Which side am I on then? Alan inquired. Samantha gestured to the side that was nearest the door. She told him about that side. After removing the blankets, Alan climbed into bed. After that, Samantha climbed on top of him. It's so lovely not to have to worry about your leg being sore from my weight. How damaging is that? I had never heard her gripe about my leg until now unless she sat on it for an extended period of time. I usually didn't mind, even yet. I didn't tell her until just now. I assumed she was never troubled by my injury. Yes, it is correct. Mike is just a CRI ripple. Alan gave a smirk. I'll let you know that I'm in excellent form. Give me your body, please. Samantha squirmed about on top of him, laughing. Drill that enormous piece of meat right through me, she made a demand. Alan gave in. Don't you still take the medication? He nudged his way into her and asked. Samantha answered him, No, I stopped taking those today. I had no idea that she was taking medication, so this was new. She was aware of my low sperm count, which was a hereditary condition, based on the opinions of other doctors I had consulted over the years. However, we had already talked about it, and Sam never seemed worried about it. It just meant that my chances of becoming a father were diminished. Next, prepare to become pregnant, stated Alan. I ended the video after I was finished, unable to continue watching. I went to the restroom as soon as I felt my meal start to rise again. I emptied my intestines into the toilet, cleaned my face, and took deep, slow breaths while counting to 10. I was in shock at what I had just witnessed. Our wedding vows had been trampled on by the only lady in my entire life that I had ever truly loved, and for the past few years, she had done it in the bed that we had shared. I started to question if I had ever truly known her. I went back into the room and glanced over the photos Allison had given me. After gathering my thoughts, each one was labeled with the location and bore a date and timestamp in the lower right corner, Dallas, Texas. Returning to my laptop, I opened my calendar. I also have receipts for any expenses I incurred because I was in Seattle on the days the pictures were purportedly taken in Dallas, I reasoned. That would be sufficient evidence that I wasn't the man in the pictures. Upon closer inspection, I could not see any distinct facial features. It seemed interesting to me. Then it dawned on me. After looking at the pictures, I saw that the man's right thigh was visible in two of them. In neither picture were there any scars. I could simply demonstrate that these pictures were all fabricated. However, why? Unless, forgive her? Samantha's prenuptial agreement gave me the impression that she was using it as a pretext for cheating on me during our divorce. Delta denoted that the guilty partner departed the marriage with nothing but the things they had brought into it and without any help. Upon careful inspection of the divorce documents, I saw that Samantha had gone well beyond what the prenuptial agreement allowed. Not only did she want my house, but she also wanted my 401k and 80% of all the marital assets, plus an enormous maintenance payment. Allison forced me to sign the documents before I saw them because I knew she would never get that much in court. I was curious to learn everything I could about this Alan persona. I went to Samantha's legal firm's website because I assumed he was associated with them. As expected, I located him. Alan Williams is a junior partner who recently joined the company after moving out of New York. It was around 11:30 p.m. when I made the decision to have our investigators look into his past. I turned off my laptop and got ready for bed, but my phone was still open. I recognized it as Samantha's father, Jacob Green. Even though I was shocked that he would call at such a late hour, I chose to answer. "This is Jake Green." "Mike, boy, how the devil are you?" he asked in that sardonic way of his own. "To be honest, Pop, I've had better days," I responded. "You've probably already," Jacob said. "Langley told me that you and Sam are getting divorced while we were at the club." To my astonishment, he inquired about my reaction to the news of my daughter's impending divorce. When I tried to call Sam, his phone went straight to voicemail. "Would you mind telling me more? Is it accurate I served her this evening allegations? Boy, did you really do it?" With a stern tone, Jacob inquired. This was very much like him, direct and concise. It was among the qualities I found admirable about the man. "In actuality, I really do. How are you doing?" "I am on my way over now." After I informed him where I was staying, he confirmed it again. "I'll arrive in 30 minutes. It doesn't matter how late it is to me, I would like to view this purported proof." "Pop, I'll be around." We finished the call, I told him, and I prepared everything for him to see before brewing a small pot of coffee because I knew he would want some. A tap on the door prompted me to reach for my revolver and scan the crowd, recognizing it as Pop and confirming he was by himself. I pried open the door. "Son, it's just me, there isn't anyone else present," Pop advised. "Keep my pistol close at hand, but you can unlatch the chain and unlock the door." "Enter now," I informed him. As soon as he entered, his eyes widened upon seeing the 9mm handgun. "How in the hell are you anticipating problems?" he inquired, startled. "Always," as I shut and locked the door, I informed him. "Now, will you please put that damn thing away?" said Pop. I secured the firearm and replaced it in the holster at my side. "Would you want a cup of coffee before we begin?" I made a suggestion, extending a paper cup with a shrug. Pop accepted the cup. "How in the hell," he stated after filling each cup. "Is it true that this is coffee?" He took a timid drink and inquired. I said that's what the package says, which made him chuckle. "Display your abilities to me at last," he said. "Allison sent me the pictures earlier in the evening, and I delivered them to him." Pop perused them with wrinkles on his forehead. He handed them back to me. "How do you feel?" I inquired. Indeed, there seems to be a little resemblance between the individual and those pictures. Whoever he is, though, he isn't you. Why do you say that? First of all, I have seen you wearing swimwear. There's no scar on that man's right thigh in one or two of those pictures, Pop said. It appears as though he is fully weight-bearing down on his right knee. You've never done that for me, I grinned in response to his observation. He was accurate, but still, I have never been able to fully rest my weight on that knee since I was shot. I also added one more thing, examine the time and date stamps on those pictures, as said by Allison. It took place in Dallas. I own the receipts as proof that I was present in Seattle at the time these photos are said to have been shot. Interesting, says the elderly man. You claim to have evidence that Samantha is unfaithful to you. I'd like to see it, Pop. It's quite graphic, I forewarned, and he dismissed my worries. I'm a boy who is an adult, nothing that I haven't seen before exists. I promise you that. All right, give it what you want. It was earlier in the evening following my departure from the residence. I informed him that he was frowning as he watched the action unfold on my laptop when I started the films. After they were done, I mentioned the security cameras that are live. Alan and Samantha were dozing off in my bed, nude legs and arms encircling one another, he said. I've seen enough, please turn it off. I shut down the video and shut my laptop. Okay, I did ask, son. I accept your story at last, he said softly. He gazed at me after a few moments of profound concentration. Do you believe that your time on the task force has anything to do with this? I had thought about the same thing, and I was intrigued by his query. I thus desired to hear his justification. Why do you ask that? He was obviously selecting his words carefully. Son, I haven't precisely told you the whole truth. Please be aware that I have been sworn to a certain degree of confidentiality, just like you. I get it, Pop, I gave him comfort. He whispered to me, I am fully aware of the task force. I'm also aware of the notorious group, MASS, the Mutual Marital Assurance Society, which was founded by a radical lawyer who wanted to punish unfaithful husbands. Sadly, her ambition for power much exceeded that goal. Please give me a brief explanation of that. Pop silently inquired with a heavy sigh. He went on, even though Trudy isn't Samantha's biological mother, Sam only truly known her as a mother. Poppy once more, although I was aware that Trudy was Pop's second wife, I never brought it up. I always assumed he would talk about it if he wanted to, and he was now. Sam's biological mother abandoned her when she was a young child, I informed him. He gave a headshake. Be not Patricia, she went by that name, grew close to the woman who initiated that. Imus asked me to co-finance her surgery. She reasoned that considering some of my political and charitable contributions, I would be receptive. I got to know the woman as Mona Larson. Watched her spit out her snake oil naturally. I declined to assist her, although I sympathized with her. I could not support her in what she intended to do. Conversely, Patty not only approved of it, but also left us to assist Mona because she felt so strongly about it. Bill Jackson was the divorce attorney I hired. She relocated to Washington, D.C. to work with Mona, taking on her maiden name of Witherspoon. Did you just say Witherspoon? I inquired. Indeed, I did, Papa replied. Why? Pop inquired. It is in my memory that just months prior to my shooting, Pat Witherspoon passed away while in police custody. Was she the first woman you married? Yes, Papa, I replied mutely, but she did not simply pass away. It was Mona Larson who killed her. She allegedly wore a poison capsule of some sort around her neck. Mona was said to have sent her a note stating that her services were no longer needed. When she did that, it set off a hypnotic suggestion that she slap her neck. She was already dead when her body hit the ground since the poison capsule had broken. I was ignorant of all that. It wasn't my case, I told him. Pop answered, it's neither here nor there. I'd already remarried by then, despite being unable to conceive. Trudy gladly adopted Sammy. After wiping his eyes, he turned to face me and continued talking. I am familiar with him. Amos has a track record of pursuing ex-agents. It's how they seek retribution. I wanted to know if you thought they were involved because of this. Although I had considered it, I believed that MMS as a business entity had been annihilated. In theory, yes, but there are still a lot of renegade agents and operatives being apprehended, Pop mentioned. He had heard that a few former contractors had just been taken into custody. I claimed I hadn't heard that. Damn it, not that I've been in a position where I needed to know. Exactly, tell me then, how you found out about all of this. After Patty departed, my divorce was filed. Back then, Bill Jackson continued to practice family law, and he took on my case. I informed him what had transpired. He told me that he had heard of Larson and her organization, along with a few other people, Pop told me. He ran this insane idea by me. I began assembling a funding mechanism because I found it appealing. We established a board, everything was planned out. Hell, I raised the money to buy Fort Apache, that abandoned army base, you know? I also petitioned Congress to provide federal backing. The rest is known to you, my father told me. So you were aware of me when we first met? I recommended. Son, I knew everything there was to know, all that Pop mentioned, including your reputation as a tough guy who doesn't accept no for an answer. So when we originally met, all you were doing was pulling my chain. I made a joke, Pop grinned and gave a head nod. He said it's what I do best, son. In addition, I was curious to know if the rumors were true. What will you do now then? Tomorrow morning, I have an appointment to see an attorney. I want the protective order to be revoked. After that, I want to kick Sam out of my house. Restraining decree? Pop asked in shock. She filed a restraining order, yeah, can you believe it? Then I'm going to file a counterclaim based on infidelity, and I intend to use the prenuptial agreement. If I get my way, someone will go to jail. Jail? Pop asked. The last time I checked, attempted extortion, conspiracy, and perjury are still criminal offenses. So is fabricating evidence. Things have changed over the previous 7 years, but I do not believe they have changed significantly. Pop chuckled at that. Good luck. Just do me one small favor, please. What is that? I understand you have to do what you have to do, but just try not to damage my young baby too much, please, he begged silently. I recognized what he meant and nodded in agreement. I will do my best, I told him. I do have a few questions if you don't mind. What is that? Could you tell me about Sam's first husband? I hadn't asked Samantha about it since I assumed it happened in the past. Pop sighed deeply and nodded his head. His name is Alvin Morrison. He is an accountant. Last I heard, he worked for a downtown financial services firm. He and Sam met at college and married after graduation. Seems like a pleasant enough guy. However, if you ask me, he's a bit of a chicken, Pop said. What happened? Sam claims he cheated on her, Pop responded. Kicked his buttocks to the curb. The divorce was filed based on the prenuptial agreement. I didn't hear from him after that. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? I asked. Pop's eyes widened, and his brows arched as he glanced at me. Now that you've mentioned it, yes, it does, he eventually stated. Do you think she set him up as well? I don't know until I check into it, but it does seem like a possibility, doesn't it? I guess it does, which signifies nothing at this point, I interrupted. I'm just thinking aloud right now, but it is something that should be looked into, I agreed. Pop spoke as he stood to leave. Please keep me in the loop. We will see, Pop, I told him, sadly. He claimed to understand, but I could see he was disappointed with his daughter. We shook hands, and I led him to the door. Before departing, he turned to face me. I apologize for all of this, son, Pop replied quietly. It was the first time I'd heard him apologize for anything, and I knew it wasn't easy. You are a wonderful man and do not deserve this, I appreciate it. Pop's apology is accepted. One final thing, son, stay in contact, will you? Of course, I replied. To my amazement, he hugged me as a father would, then left. I closed the door, returned to bed, pulled the blankets down, and fell asleep. The following day, I awoke earlier than usual. I got ready and then gathered my belongings for the day. I didn't care to verify the surveillance system, I could always look at it when I got back. After a light breakfast and a refreshing caramel mocha, I went to the office. Classic Toll was keeping me company. When I arrived, my boss, Jack Iverson, CEO of Iverson Security Services, IAC, welcomed me into his office. I encountered Terry Torres, the Chief of Investigative Services, in his office, so I headed to Jack's corner office. Morning, Mike, Jack stated. I didn't expect you till after your appointment with Alice. I couldn't sleep and decided to come in, I explained. I understand, Jack informed me. I took the liberty of briefing Terry regarding your predicament. I hope you do not mind. Not at all. In fact, I have a few leads that could be valuable, Terry asked. I found out last night that Samantha is cheating on me with Alan Williams, a partner at the Hempstead Law Group. I couldn't print a photo, but he is on their website. If it doesn't work, try searching for a hole on Google, perhaps you can take a picture there. Both men chuckled at this. That is a start. Anything else? Terry asked. Yeah, I want you to find an Alvin Morrison. I suppose he works for a financial services company in town, I said. So, who precisely is he? Terry asked. He is Samantha's first spouse. I want to learn everything about their divorce. It should be public records, so it will be easy to find. I'd be grateful if you could verify his employment if he is in town. That should be relatively simple to execute, Terry said. Just curious, what are your intentions? Jack inquired. I would like to speak with him about his divorce. I have a feeling Samantha has played this little game before, I said. Terry bowed his head as he took notes. One more thing, I need to know everything you can about these photographs. I handed Terry one of the photos from the packet Allison gave me the day before. Damn, you're not asking for much, boss, Terry inquired cynically as he looked at the photograph. Jack examined it once Terry handed it to him. You weren't even in Dallas when this was photographed, Jack observed. Assume this date stamp is correct? No, I was not, I responded. The photo may take some time, but I should have answers to the rest of this for you by the end of the day, Terry told me. Not to worry, Mike. I'll get my finest people on this and send everything we uncover to you and Alice. Thank you, Terry. I sincerely appreciate it, I informed him. I owed you, he smiled at that. Buy me a cold one, and we'll call it even, he said. Well, I'd better get to it. I will be in touch. Thank you, Terry, Jack said as Terry left. I repeated the sentiment, and Jack motioned for me to close the door. He stared at me with concern before speaking. Do you believe this could be a rogue mouse operation, Mike? You know how those people are about getting revenge, he replied. I do not know, Jack. I thought so at first, but I am not sure. I did learn one intriguing fact, however, I said. What is that? Jack inquired. Samantha's birth mother was Pat Witherspoon, a moss tip operator. That's fascinating. She's been deceased for a time based on what I have heard, Jack said. Tell you what I'll do. I will contact Bill Jackson and Oscar Warren to see if they have heard anything. Oscar's pretty much the alpha dog at Fort Apache now, Jack remarked. That is what I heard as well. Mike, you've got a good bunch of folks behind you on this. Let them handle the heavy lifting. Meanwhile, take some time off, perhaps go fishing or something, Jack said, concerned. I appreciate that, Jack, but I can't just sit there and let Samantha screw me over, I told him. I understand how you feel, Mike. Really, I do. But maybe you should sit this one out. You're no longer a field agent, Jack told me. I understand, but I can't sit back and do nothing. I'm simply not wired that way, I said. No, you are not, and that is one of the qualities.